All right, so the cheeky midweeky. We've already said in advance, if there's anything too spicy, he's going to blink Morse code for no. Please welcome. Are you the head strength conditioning coach at Villanova?
For football specifically, the assistant underneath the director.
And the father of Sprintember, Mike Tucker. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Kier. How you doing?
I'm fucking tip top. Now you have the 1,000-yard stare and sleep-deprived look of a man who is mid-camp. How is camp going?
Yeah, camp is good. So camp finished up. We're in week 1 now. So I think it's Monday, 6 days out from week 1. So camp finished off with a bang, which was good. Trying to make sure the boys are feeling good, ready to go for the first game against Lehigh. So obviously, all the moving parts, dealing with the ATs, dealing with the football coaches, and then trying to voice your opinion on practice load management, and then trying to high load and wave it, and all the good, fun conversations you get to have during camp. So
how's the CAA working this year? Is it just back to normal?
Yeah, as is normal. When the spring happened, it was every state was way different. So like when we went up to Maine, there was 0 fans, like not even a parent in the stands. It was the most
really?
I've ever been a part of. But then now, we're back to normal. So we'll see how it goes.
Did you do that thing last year where you had to play like 3 teams home and away, or?
They split it up into north-south, and then you played – the north teams all played each other, and then the south teams all played each other twice because there was like 4 teams. So
yeah.
Teams dropped out midway through the spring. It was a shit show, for lack of a better term, to be honest with you.
So talk to me about camp. Like, how'd it go?
Good. The conversations are getting better in year 4 for me. So, year 1, you talk about wave in practice and building up because, the practice 1 and 2, they're just in helmets and all the football coaches are geeked up. So it's a light day. And as the research shows us, that tends not to be the case. So the conversations go better and better. So we're inching towards, what quote unquote ideal is, but for us, but it ain't there yet. We're still breaking down barriers and still, having those difficult conversations with coaches, trying to show them the research, trying to show them, hey, this guy might pop, tomorrow if we don't back off, but, getting the continual buy-in from coaching staff, the players, the ATCs, that's all obviously very important.
You've been in place of that staff for like the last 4 years?
Yes, we've had some turnover on the football staff, but for the majority, the bulk of the staff's been here. So I have a good relationship with a lot of those guys, which, obviously is the important part.
What would you say have like been the biggest pieces that you've got done in those 4 years, but then what are the big pieces that you have left to do that's on your list?
Yeah. So return to play, obviously, at practice, I'm able to now handle guys a lot more. And that's more from the relationship with the athletic trainers, talking to them about progressions, regressions, and then just their goals, the athlete's goals, and then how I can obviously kind of fill the gaps so we're not in the siloed approach. So that's been a big step forward for us. And then, like I said, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, it was like, 24, 26, 28, first 3 practices. And the dudes, then day 7, 8, 9, they're like, oh, why do we have, X amount of soft tissues, or why is it this? And it's like, they were just they have not done 2 hours, 2.5 hours, their feet 3 in a row all summer, just field. So the volume we're definitely decreasing. Next would be pairing up the stimuli. So, having a short yardage, high contact, high collision day, on high day, then obviously a lot more open space, more speed dominant day with, a low day in between would be what we're working towards, but, trying to get there.
One of the conversations I had with Nick DeMarco is like, he and I were talking about, camp always starts out like day 1 or day 2 is your highest day of all of camp. And then basically you flog them in week 1, it goes down a little bit. You hold on for dear life in week 2, week 3, you panic. And then week 4, you like limp over the line.
Yes.
And he and I were talking about, well, you could, even if you don't want to, but even if you could keep the total volume of camp the same, if you just flip the order and have, week 4 is your week 1, 2, 3, 4, and then taper into that.
Yeah.
And I was like, you do need to make a case. This is what I said. I said, well, you need to make a case that maybe you do need to be out there for 3 hours and they need to be on their feet for 3 hours and so on. But he actually said to me, he's like, well, when they walk off the sideline in a game, are they stood up or they sat down? Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I think would make a ton of sense in camp situations, but they would look at you like you had two heads, which is when you're not doing reps, go sit down on the bench.
Yeah. I think Dr. Corum talked about that too, like having, 10 days out or 2 weeks out, having, the mock game of being out 3.5 hours, going to the bench and prepping them for those conversations. An example of this is we're quote unquote limping. I wouldn't put it as that bad for us right now, but we had a walkthrough and a 15 period day back to back the last week of camp. And I was like, Coach, this is great. Like, why can't this be, I'm not trying to make us do less, but why can't this just be thrown into the middle to give us more of a wave instead of have monotonous 24 period day? You have 4 of the same practices in a row, like 24, 26 periods, whatever it is. It's like, why can't we just throw these last 2 days that we just did in the middle of camp? So last week was more of a high-low model, and we got, we saw good results from it, which was good.
That's one of the things that confuses me is like the human psychology of, if you were to say like, let's say averaging 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. If you were to say, right, I'm going to give you 12 hours of practice a day, and they'll say, yeah, and we average, 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. But if you were suddenly to take that and say, right, 3 days a week, we're going to do 2.5 hours, and the other 3 days we're going to do 1.5, they just can't get it. They couldn't possibly make it happen.
It's not the way it's always been done. So, with the relationship building process, just keep building that trust, keep, bringing the solutions to the table, right? Like problem-oriented, solution-focused. The be complaining, goes out the window, and it's more, okay, how do we fix problem X? How do we fix problem Y? Bringing actionable solutions. And then something that I've definitely struggled with in the past, communicating at the level. Like, I don't need to go in there and say high, low. I don't need to say neural stimulus. Like, I can just break it down a little simpler. If I can do more work on the front end to make it so the D-line coach, I'm talking in D-line terms, the DB coach, I'm talking in DB terms. Like, that obviously is super important to the process as well.
That's why Scott was so valuable for me, just because he speaks football and he has that credibility in football, which you do as well, but I definitely do not.
You're a rugby guy.
Just a rugby guy. Anyway, talk to me about the are you doing speed all the way through camp?
So pre-practice, we built in a couple rest periods into the warm-up, and the coaches, are sweating bullets back there, we built in a couple micro rests into it. So we try and hit our velocities that way. So we're not hitting chains or prowler starts or anything like that. We generally sprinkle that in once a week in season, but during camp, with just the amount of volume, I'm trying to, and the monotony of it, I'm trying to keep the main thing, and just keep them healthy and ready to play football. So that was my way of, I fight for 15, 20-minute warm-ups, I get 10. So that's my way of saying, okay, what can I do in 10 minutes to get them ready and try and hit a velocity that we need to hit? It's like, okay, well, cut the warm-up, 2 or 3 exercises shorter and give them more rest, and then go hit your velocities.
And are you more interested in them hitting the top end rather than putting their foot down in acceleration when you have them?
They get a lot of the acceleration reps during practice, but granted, it's more in a fatigue state. But yeah, our bigs generally at 10 to 15, skill generally 15 to 20. I don't need them to hit a flying 30 pre-practice. Just from a perspective of, you got 100 guys and they all have a different stimuli going in. In June, July, it's with me, and I know exactly what they're doing when they're doing it. Right, the DB coach could have gotten pissed and had them run gashes after practice, or done an excruciating indie. And that's just something that I'm not going to individualize on my own practice.
So on the topic of speed, seamless transition, you are the father of Sprintember. What prompted you doing it last year?
Yeah, honestly, just wanted to put something positive into the world. Honestly, I was bored during COVID. We were in lockdown. They were kicking us out of parks, off of tracks in the Philadelphia area, which is insane. Masked up 6 feet apart, can't be at the track alone.
Really?
And cop cars sitting at the track. So trying to, put something out there, a free speed program, hey, here's why sprinting's important, and run with it. And honestly, I bought a couple shirts, and I was like, maybe my friends will buy shirts and all that stuff. And a lot of coaches ended up, liking the program. So, this year took a little more convincing from some of my colleagues in the community and to do it, just because I was so focused on Villanova and our football season. But a lot of the work was done on the front end of last year. And then a bunch of colleagues have also chipped in and helped. So this month's not about me or any individual. It's more about, putting something positive in the world, having a free speed program available to the masses, and letting it run with it. No.
What's the new concepts, new materials that you brought in this year compared to last year?
Yeah, and people may look at the program and say, oh, well, it's pretty similar. I mean, yeah, the same idea remains consistent: run, rest, repeat, right? Like hit velocity. So we're resting and recovering. Definitely took a little more in-depth plyometric work from an advanced standpoint. So we, if you haven't seen it, it's a beginner card and an advanced card, right? The beginner is the guy who doesn't really sprint, kind of a weekend warrior type. And it's like, okay, we don't want him to pull any hamstring. Let's give him a very introductory detail. And then the advanced card is a little more, okay, they've definitely done plyometrics and sprinting before. Conservatively speaking, the volume and total yard is definitely on the conservative side. But, adding a little more contrast reps, adding a little more drill work, and then changing up how we're going to do our aerobic stimulus is definitely a big transition from the prior year. I just kept it really simple the prior year: linear tempos, extensive med balls, rudimentary hops. This year, adding a little more multi-directional tempos, because like we all know, this isn't groundbreaking news. Sport ain't played in a linear fashion. So I think it's important, and I got that from James Smith, is, prepping the body aerobically and having the aerobic musculature develop like it will in sport. So adding a little flair to that, but all in all, it is a straightforward, similar program without a doubt.
On that subject, you mentioned Corum. I remember he and I had a conversation like over 3 years ago, where he had this obscure reference where he basically found a study that it was like capillary beds in muscle tissue. The capillaries are like laid down proportional to the direction of the stress placed upon them. So it's almost like that. It almost manifests itself mechanically. If you run in a straight line, you're going to adapt accordingly.
Yep. Like really good at recovering in that straight line. So, yeah. My 300 pounders need to get in the way for 5 seconds and protect the quarterback, and then push a human 6 yards, right? They get elite at those two things. They're going to make millions of dollars potentially. So they don't need to run 110 yards linear, at any point.
Yeah. Don't say that on Twitter. You'll get assaulted like I did. Talk to me about the charity.
The charity, yeah, absolutely. So again, emphasize on putting something positive into the world. Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression. The topic of mental health is becoming more and more open to talk about as more and more athletes speak out about it, right? Simone Biles, Dak Prescott, and sharing their struggles. Like, it is 100% a real factor that people may not adhere to as much and may not focus on as much, just because, the physical preparation, that's all it's about. It's more like, well, it's a piece of the pie, but if your mentals ain't right, if your brain's not in it all the way, then we got problems. So all of the profits for the t-shirt sales are going to Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression, which is a nonprofit organization who helps provide resources for anybody who's looking for, mental health help, and they can actually provide free therapy from a lot of their contributions. So we're trying to rid the stigma a little bit, be able to talk about it more openly, and that foundation is one that I think can benefit the community.
I mean, I'll take a wild guess and say that's affected either you or athletes that you work with, right?
Without question. I think you'd be lying to say it, or you'd just be really unaware of your surroundings to say it has one you or two people you've worked with. So I think it's definitely a topic that hits close to home for myself as well as other coaches.
Yeah, man. So plans for the year?
Plans for the year. Obviously have a great season at Villanova. Partake in some great continuing education at CVAS for potentially other trips. See all the boys there, and then potentially go to another conference or two, but nothing really groundbreaking over here, man. Trying to focus one day at a time, stay where my feet are, but outside of football season, I'm not really doing too much, to be honest with you.
Cash Chicks Championships. Hey, tell me about this real estate. How's the real estate going?
Real estate's good. Then that's where I funnel all of my savings into. So for, those looking to get into it, I essentially bought a house and then rented out the rooms. So I have roommates, but those roommates are paying my entire mortgage and then some. So I have monthly cash flow coming in. So, hopefully that funds into the next deal. I
got out of real estate, and I now just run a hostel for deadbeats.
I ain't there yet.
Bro, let me tell you something about mine, right? I found out the other day, $4,000 and counting for the legal expenses to get out one person.
They were squatting for 18 months, you said?
No, this is another one. This lease ended in March. Still there now. Oh, my good Lord. But
the eviction moratorium. That needs the
Sleepy Joe. Joe, brother. I should have asked, where can people sign up for the program? Sprintember.
Yeah, so it's in my Instagram bio, and then it's just-sprint.com. And that's where you'll find the t-shirt sales. And then you just type in your email. The program gets sent out to you, on certain dates, and we're going to send it out a week at a time. So that's definitely a good place to start for everybody, is just-sprint.com. And then, the link to the t-shirts are there. And then you can also find the charity, the Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression, just AAADF.org. So that's, that's where all the funds will go to from the t-shirt sales.
And Sprintember promotion, they can, I'm guessing, sign up for Strength Coach Network through the link in your bio, $50 off annual membership, and
yes,
the chance to win $2,000 worth of kit from Exojo. So
yes.